Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. I'm Justin. I'll be your host tonight. With me are Cody, Joe, and special guest, Jesse. So we are here to talk about a movie that came out recently and seems to have become kind of an underdog darling over the past month or so. But first, before we get to that, let's find out what we've all been up to. Just going in order of what's on my screen here. Cody's the first one in line. So, Cody, what's new with you?
Well, something was new with me this week, which was the other day when my phone got an alert that said, take cover because there's a dust storm coming that could block out the sun where you live. And that was a new experience for me. I read since then that apparently it was only the second time I think like the weather service has put that alert out, at least in this area. So it did not get like entirely dark here at my house, but I did hear other parts of the state it got pretty bad. Our cars were pretty
Wow.
covered, but the bigger problem here was wind. It was just even like our 60-foot trees were like doing this a little bit, and I was like kind of worried about the cars and everything else around it. But some of my baby trees got smashed up, and
Oh,
was not happy about any of that. But so that was new, and beyond that, I have had not a lot of time this week, but I did spend a little bit of time Friday night subjecting myself to punishment, or as other people call it, Wolfenstein 2, the New Colossus. So, you
I
know,
so I so expected you to say Andor, just given your history with that.
yeah, no, I haven't gotten back into that yet. As supposedly Karen wants to watch it, but she's refusing to actually start the thing. So
Mm.
I've heard good things about this season.
you probably heard good things about last season too.
Oh boy. All right. Anything else in your neck of the woods, Cody?
Nope, that's it here.
All right. So for the rebuttal, Joe, what's new with you?
I also have not watched any of Andor season two yet, but I have heard good things about it. Um, but speaking of TV series, I wanted to give quick shout outs to two TV series, which I'm pretty sure I've mentioned at least one of on this podcast before, but one of my favorite comedy series over the past few years, and I dare say it deserves a place amongst the better comedy series of all time. Just had its series finale, I believe,
Hmm.
last Sunday. That is The Righteous Gemstones. It's on HBO. It's by Danny McBride and his kind of regular collaborators. And it's about a family of televangelists and also stars Walton Goggins, who has kind of been in the limelight recently with his roles in Fallout and The White Lotus. Walton Goggins' character on The Righteous Gemstones, I honestly believe, is one of the greatest creations in the history of mankind. um, but the show is like it's so tonally weird because it's hilarious. It gets really weird at times. It gets really dark at times. And it also has a lot of heart and kind of touches you in surprising ways, much like actual televangelists. But
Yeah.
if anyone is a fan of comedy, especially if you like Danny McBride and or Walton Goggins, recommend checking that out. And then I also wanted to give a shout out to a series that I don't think enough people even really know exists, but I think probably multiple people on this podcast would enjoy, and that is a show called Poker Face, which unfortunately is on Peacock, a streaming service that nobody has.
I have Peacock.
Um, but it's a series that was created by Ryan Johnson and Natasha Lyonne, who also stars in the series. And it's kind of like a modern day Columbo with a slight supernatural twist. Natasha Lyonne plays the main character, and it's basically like a weekly whodunit. Like, spoiler alert, somebody gets murdered at the beginning of every episode. And Natasha Lyonne's character just kind of happens to like stumble upon it and has to try to figure out what happened. But the slight twist to it is that I don't think they even actually ever explain this, but her character has the ability to tell when someone is lying. So like just like when somebody's talking, she just kind of inherently can tell if something they say is like true or not. So her kind of signature move is if someone is talking and they say something that's false, she just says bullshit.
Now, does it count if what they're saying is something they believe is true but is actually fake or false, or is it like objectively true or false?
That's a great question. I think if it's something they believe is true, it gets past her.
Ah, okay.
I'm trying to think. There was one episode so far this season. So season two just started.
Mhm.
There's an episode where there's a little bit of something like that where her power kind of throws things off a little bit.
Okay.
But anyway, I mean, Cody, I know you're a fan of Knives Out, and
Hmm.
even though you don't like all of Ryan Johnson's work, um, I think this kind of has a similar vibe where it's funny, but like still, not afraid to get a little bit dark at times. The structure I think is interesting because the way it's constructed, the audience actually sees the murder happen at the beginning of every episode, but then it's a matter of Natasha Lyonne's character like being able to actually figure out who did it. So we know, but then it's a matter of like her putting the pieces together over the course of the episode. Anyway, it's a really fun series. I think you can get a free version of Peacock. I don't know if this would be included in that, but if nothing else, you can get a pretty cheap subscription. So check it out.
Nice. Nice. All right. Jesse, what about you?
Well, um, today it's snowing.
Actually,
Yeah.
What?
It is actually snowing. Yep.
my God.
Yep. Middle of May and it's snowing.
It's the
Um,
end times.
Take that,
eh,
dust storm.
it's normal. It's normal for around here, but let's see. Interesting and different. Today I picked up the two packages of honeybees for um, my dad and my beehives from the post office. The postal worker was very glad to see me when I came to the door and said, I'm here for so and so's bees. And yeah, because those aren't in a sealed box or anything. They are in wooden box. Well, they're in wooden boxes where the sides are mesh.
Okay.
So you pick them up and they start buzzing.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah. So that was an exciting car ride. They did
I
settle
can't agree.
down. Yeah. But yeah, riding in the car with bees.
No, thank you.
Hmm. Yeah, and since it's snowing today, they're currently hanging out in my parents' house. We'll hopefully be able to hive them tomorrow after work.
Hopefully not still snowing.
Yeah.
Um, all right. I guess that brings it to me. I was also along for that adventure, and yeah, that was definitely a new one for me. Beyond that, I finally finished the first book in the Wheel of Time, The Eye of the World, and it's very different from the show. I'm really kind of wishing I'd started reading the books earlier because there's so much more depth and so much more that happens in them. Like it, in the first season of the show, they get to Tar Valon, like I think partway through. Here, they're nowhere near actually getting to it, and it's like 800 pages worth of material. So already a very, very different experience. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. And yeah, very well constructed fantasy world. Um, Aside from that, I recently ordered a new laptop because Microsoft is stopping Windows 10 updates in a few months, and for whatever reason, the on their master list of supported CPUs, the one that is in the current laptop I have and that is soldered to the motherboard, it's not on that list. So I cannot upgrade to Windows 11 on this particular laptop. So uh, money I had been kind of holding my breath on spending, but Amazon had a bunch of early Memorial Day sales, so I looked through those, decided to bite the bullet. So next time we're recording, I will be on a new piece of hardware probably, so that'll
Nice.
be interesting. Um, yeah. Beyond that, just yesterday, so I've only spent like an hour on this. I did start playing one of, I want to say it was just on my honorable mentions list for most anticipated games of 2025. Finally started playing Xenoblade Chronicles X. So interesting so far. The combat is going to take some getting used to, I think, but we'll see where this goes. It's not often I play a sci-fi themed JRPG.
Nice.
So yeah, so that's about it for me. And in a completely different note is what we're talking about today. So as you may have guessed, based on when this episode comes out, and just the time frame I gave, we are talking about Sinners, the sleeper hit horror movie from writer and director Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan and Michael B. Jordan as playing two separate characters
And Eddie Murphy.
that sometimes interact on the screen at the same time. Also Miles Catton, a Chinese actor named Yao, a whole bunch of them that we'll talk about once we start talking about the characters and stuff. It is a well, full spoilers right out the gate. It's a vampire movie set in 1930s Mississippi. So it's also a period piece dealing with a whole lot of social upheaval and biases, prejudices, the whole shebang. So a whole lot of loaded topics that this movie covers, and we'll see if it covers them well. But before we delve too much into the plot or anything, we're was it, I wasn't part of the most anticipated movies episode, so was this on the radar for you, Joe, or you, Cody? I know Jesse wasn't part of that one either.
It was actually not really on my radar, and I think mostly just because I generally am not really a huge fan of horror films. By which I think I should clarify, I don't like jump scares or like cheap horror films, but I can appreciate, movies that are actually well made, well written, well acted films that are in the horror genre. But I believe
Okay.
this was on Cody's list, right?
It was, yes. So, episode 157, we did these, and yes, this was on my top 10 for the year because, unlike Joe, I have good taste. So this was, I knew
Mm.
going into the year this was going to be a hit, and this was no, it was pretty low. It was number nine on my list, but it was one I was pretty interested in because of the mix of different themes and styles of storytelling here that we'll talk about tonight. So,
Nice. Um, I hadn't really heard much about this until it came out. I think I had seen it in a list of upcoming films and whatnot, but it there hadn't been a whole lot coming out this year in general that really stood out to me, so I must have just glossed over it. And then word of mouth started getting around, so I didn't really find out about this one until kind
I
of
mean, the
late.
word of mouth to south.
Indeed.
let's get,
what about you,
ignore you
Jesse?
and eat my ice cream over here.
What about you, Jesse? Was this one like really on your radar at all?
Ah, you're asking someone who goes to what, two or three movies a year?
Fair enough. I figured I'd ask because yeah, I'm not that much of a movie buff these days either. And since it wasn't really in my list, I wasn't sure if it would have been on yours, but never hurts to ask.
Uh,
Um,
I
so
honestly don't remember.
gotcha. Um, so yeah, I at least went into this kind of blind. I knew it was a period piece. I knew I had it spoiled that it involved vampires, but at this point, the movie's been out for like a month, so no harm in talking about that part now. And vampires aren't generally my thing, despite the fact that I ran a game of Eat the Reich, which is very vampire centric, on this very podcast. It takes a very special touch for vampires to actually appeal to me personally. You have to do something original with it, or just really fun, or really creepy. Because a lot of vampires to me are just sort of the old, stuffed up aristocrats who are, oh, it's such torture being alive forever. How will I ever deal with eternity, I can't possibly find any hobbies or anything but my own self-pity to get me through all these many centuries. That's how I tend to see vampires.
This is why
Or
you need to
they're
watch the Interview with the Vampire series. It's amazing.
or
but
they're absolutely terrible, sparkly, teenage angsty love interests.
yeah, there's that side of things too.
Eh.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so
that's fair. I mean, I think there are ways to make vampires more interesting and exciting. Let me pitch you on a movie.
okay.
Okay. So it's a movie that's written by one of the all-time great auteur filmmakers. It's about two brothers on the run from the law for reasons that are not entirely clear, but they end up heading south and holding up in a bar slash house of ill repute of some sort. Live music is a big part of this whole setup. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, vampires. They end up dragging some innocent folks into this whole spiel and trying to survive the night. I guess you could say that they're fighting the vampires from dusk till dawn. Oh wait,
And that was the new Roadhouse on Amazon. Go check it
yes.
out.
It couldn't be worse than the one they actually put out. Um, but that said, there are certain similarities even in this setup between Sinners and other pre-existing works. But I do feel that there is enough here that's unique, that has its own flavor, its own identity. That to me, it really kind of it did the trick in terms of making a vampire movie that I didn't just roll my eyes at. Um, but yes, yeah, definite similarities. Two brothers that moved back home from the big city in back south from the big city in 1930s. Like I said, they moved to Mississippi, where they decide to use their ill-gotten gains to open up a juke joint and start recruiting, musicians and singers and whatnot from around the community that they knew from their days that they had lived there before. So there's some history there that comes bubbling to the surface. Some of it good, some of it bad. And vampires do show up, but in the midst of all of this is a more mystical strife where the film opens with talk of how there are certain musicians that arise from time to time that are so gifted, so talented, just so good at what they do that their music reaches the veil between life and death and allows communion with the ancestors, ancestors from the past, but also from the future. It's something that connects people from across time. It's music that is quite literally timeless, but it also draws the attention of other darker things, and hence the vampire angle that comes in. And I hadn't ever really seen that sort of mysticism worked into a film like this before. Usually it's just like, oh, there's, the vampires find an easy target and they go after it, and then the people have to fight to survive, or people stumble into the vampires' homes, have to survive, etc., and so on. So what did you think of this whole framing of the story, of it being so music centered, and the fact that music is so pervasive throughout everything in the plot? What did you make of that?
Well, I'm a pretty big fan of musicals, so I'm going to say it certainly captured my interest. There's a lot of good music in this movie. In fact, I wouldn't mind owning the soundtrack. And some of the song and dance numbers are incredible.
I can agree with pretty much all of that. And yeah, if you know anything about this movie other than the fact that it has vampires, you've probably heard talk of one of the musical scenes in particular. Um, we can get into that a bit later if you guys want. But yeah, Joe, Cody, did you like the music in this? Did you like how it was woven into the story? What did you think?
I hate blues music. No, I
You liar.
I mean, I loved it. I love blues music. My wallpaper right now is Buddy Guy for reasons specifically related to this movie, but also not. He's been one of my favorite artists for a long time. And I mean, this is something we can maybe talk about later, but going back to what you were saying about like the kind of premise of various other vampire movies and the setup of this movie, I don't think this movie is really about vampires. Like, I think the vampires are just like a metaphor for other things. And I think
Yeah.
in good horror movies, that's often the case. Like, whatever the, horror elements are, are kind of metaphor for real life traumas and things like that.
Sure.
I think this movie is very much about Black culture. I think it is also about cultural appropriation, and cultural homogenization. So I think it's interesting. I mean, these are things that have been kind of occurring throughout history, but I think they're also as relevant now as ever. But I do think, I think what you were talking about specifically with the idea of the like kind of supernatural element of the music being able to like reach through the ages, I feel like that maybe ties into more some like African spiritual beliefs. I mean, the blues music obviously has its roots in Africa, and I think this movie is very interested in exploring the importance of music in Black culture, but also the importance of kind of preserving Black culture in the face of attempts to appropriate it or, you know, kind of water it down in various ways.
I thought of Joe right away when I got closer to watching this movie because, and you two may know this as alumni as well, but the English department once upon a time said one of the greatest papers they ever had submitted in the English department was by a grad student on Robert Johnson, and the author of that paper was Joe Janka himself. So this idea of music kind of transcending worlds and being a vessel for the supernatural and made me think of that story immediately. And then just this idea of a guy who has talent that's beyond this world, or that sold the soul to for talent beyond this world, or these different things of this nature, made me think of. I don't know if it was it last year or 2 years ago? I forget now time, but as I was driving through the South last year, and you guys know one of my hobbies is searching for graves, I saw Robert Johnson was buried where we were driving through. I think Mississippi was the right state there. And interestingly, like three different cemeteries by very small churches in the middle of nowhere all claimed to
Yeah, I was
have
going to say,
him buried there.
allegedly, you visited his grave.
Uh-huh. So that was a fun
Uh,
little hunt in and of itself, but we went to where we thought it was most likely he was at from the facts we had presented to us. But driving around those roads down there, though, I mean, that is kind of the setting we get for this movie. It's just that extremely remote, dirt road, small town. You don't see somebody for an hour or two while you drive sometimes, and I mean, who knows what could happen out in some of those places late at night on a midnight in the middle
Yeah.
of summer.
Well, and I mean, historically, I think that is the reason that, I mean, it is true that a lot of the, especially like black juke joints, were operated way out in the middle of nowhere. And I think it was so that they could have their own space and hopefully be removed from, harassment from the townsfolk that were predominantly white.
Yeah.
yeah. I do want to talk. A bit about something Joe mentioned. The some of the themes that pervade this movie, of cultural appropriation and cultural marginalization, where it does bear noting that this is almost entirely a minority cast. I mean, you've got obviously Michael B. Jordan and Miles Catton as like the two main leads in this. But also let's see. I just want to make sure I get the pronunciation on a few of these right. Wunmi Mosaku playing Annie, um, Jamie Lawson playing Perline. Heavily black cast, but almost everyone, even like the side characters, is is, if not black, at least marginalized, or a minority in some other way. You have Lee Jun Lee playing Grace Chow, Yao playing her husband Bo Chow, Helena Yu playing their daughter, all Chinese. Chinese were all also historically marginalized and exploited, throughout American history, and even extending to the vampires, or the head vampire at least. His character's name was Remick, played by Jack O'Connell, Irish. The Irish, not always as well recognized, but also exploited and marginalized at certain points in American history. So, like, all of the key players in this are from minority groups or like exploited groups, and seeing how they all interact and ultimately kind of end up falling into ruin because they can't mesh it because of circumstance or because of societal pressure or what have you. It's interesting, and I think there's a lot to unpack there. Um, did we want to touch on that a little bit, or just kind of leave it up to audience interpretation, and leave it as saying it's a thing that's out there and it's worth mentioning? Um,
We should talk about it.
okay, go for it if you're ready.
Well, um, first of all, I want to say kudos to the production team of this movie. They had historical consultants on, I want to say, 10 different aspects. I mean, you've got a consultant on the economics of the time. You've got a consultant for the Mississippi Choctaw. You've got a consultant for the Mississippi Delta Chinese culture. You've got a consultant for the Irish culture of the time. Everything is historically researched, and I really appreciate that in a movie or other media, and they worked hard to get the representation as accurate as possible. It doesn't matter that this is a supernatural horror movie. They worked hard to make it historically fit.
Yeah, I think that deserves some acclaim as well, because that had to have taken a lot of work, a lot of time. Um, and yeah, it's making sure that, what you're presenting, that, outside of the supernatural stuff, that the rest of it is not exaggerated or, offensive or what have you. I think that's important because, especially if when you're dealing with a period piece, you want to make sure you're not just laying into existing stereotypes or misconceptions or what have you. Um, and I know in bringing all this up, we're probably making this sound kind of dry or scholarly or whatever. Um, but I do think it does bear mentioning because it's impressive the work they put into it. I do agree. Um, Thoughts from
Yeah,
the other two
and,
here?
and
Oh, go
there
ahead.
is
Sorry.
also a consultant for the hoodoo.
Oh, yes, yeah, because
Hmm.
as we mentioned, there is an element or several elements of mysticism worked into this. So the fact that they even tried to make that as accurate and believable as possible is impressive. Um, and I think it helps make the movie as a whole just feel fully realized. Like it's not just a superficial look at all of this. It does feel like it's an actual like slice of life from 1930s Mississippi and all the trials, tribulations, and problems that kind of came along with it. Um, did you two have anything you wanted to chime in
I
with
was just
regards to
going to
that?
add as a, I don't know if it's a devil's advocate comment or not, but just not necessarily what I am saying, but speaking of stereotypes though, but like the white characters in the movie are presented as pretty stereotypical. This is who you think they would be. Redneck KKK. He's the villain. This is the bad guy. He's the landowner. He's the guy that's killing the black people. So there is some of that, I think, in there. One of the more interesting characters that I don't think you mentioned is Haley Steinfeld's character, who objectively would look white, but goes into detail in the movie about how she's not entirely white, right? Like she's also partially black, and maybe as our only character that looks that way that hangs out with the main cast. Even at the time period, she's still a woman, so that's still a marginalized community if you want to think about that in the 1930s. Like it's different representation, but it's also there still. So
That's true. That's true.
shout out to Delta Slim.
Ah, he was such a good character. Just Delta Slim, played by Delroy Lindo. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he's
liked him.
amazing.
I really liked him. Like he
He was
had the
good.
yeah, he just had this. You could tell he'd lived through a lot, and sometimes it got the better of him. And even the way he sort of like pulled away into himself, it felt real. It felt like he was pivoting towards something he knew, which was music at times, and yeah, just a great performance from him. Since we're talking about it, and unless you had something you wanted to add about like the whole representation thing, Joe, yeah, let's talk about performances that stood out. Like we just mentioned Delta Slim, the character, and
Yeah.
I can agree. Yeah, great one there. What others really stood out to you?
I,
I
I,
honestly, it,
Go ahead.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
um, I believe this is Miles Catton's first film, or certainly like
Ooh.
his
Wow.
first like major role.
Yeah.
And I thought he was fantastic in this movie, like both in terms of his acting performance and musical performance. I think I heard somewhere that he actually learned how to play guitar for this movie.
Wow.
Like
Wow.
he was a musician, like I think he played piano and other things before this, but he apparently
Wow.
didn't really play guitar before this. But I think in terms of both acting and the musicianship, he's incredible.
Hmm.
I like his character. I like how understated he is.
Hmm.
But it's
Hmm.
it's believable, he's this kind of shy preacher's son who like loves music but is kind of struggling with his identity because his father thinks that, blues music is the devil's work basically.
Bad or devil.
Um, so I just wanted to give him a shout out because I thought he was great, especially given this is like his first major acting role.
That's pretty cool.
And holy
Hmm.
crap, what a voice!
Yeah.
Yeah, great set of pipes. And if you haven't seen the movie yet, or if you're seeing it again, be sure to sit through all the credits.
Hmm.
He's got just a musical piece that that takes place before the action of the movie, where he's just singing,
I
and
disagree. We don't
it's
actually
great.
know when that takes place.
Yeah, I
And
don't I don't think it's before either,
Ri-
but I don't know.
Ryan
He does.
Coogler, I believe, has actually said that he wants it to be a little ambiguous as to
Yeah.
what that represents.
Well, he didn't have the scars.
So that does ground it in a certain
He might not
time
be
period.
alive anymore.
Mm. Oh, I didn't
I've
consider
Hmm.
that
read that
aspect of
it's
things.
at least a
Oh.
possibility that this is
Ah,
after any portrayal we see of him.
okay, interesting.
Interesting.
Yes.
Well, circle
Huh.
back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say one character that during the movie I enjoyed, but after thinking about it more, was actually the main vampire Remick, Jack O'Connell's character. I just thought he was sleazy's the wrong word, but like almost like a door-to-door salesman of the vampire world who like could get you to buy into what he was trying to talk about or what he was offering you. And he had a kind of unique like facial pattern about him as well. Like he sold his emotions really well when he's talking to different people. He seemed innocent when he was trying to seem innocent. He was, angry at moments here or there, but I like him quite a bit. Also,
And he's great at Evil River Dance.
Oh
yes,
my
he is.
gosh.
That was
That
fun.
kick, that kick over the camera, that was so awesome.
Yeah, he was.
Actually, sounds like Jack
So
O'Connell used to be known as Michael Flatley.
Uh,
I don't know if this is the place for me to raise this question, but so I think Michael B. Jordan is great. He's good in pretty much everything he's in. One question I have is, I guess, multifaceted. One, how did you feel about his performance as the two brothers here? As far as did you feel like there was really enough to distinguish the two?
I noted more differences the second time I saw it, and I'm glad we saw it for a second time.
Okay.
Yeah, Stack had the red hat and later the red vest. Smoke had the blue hat and blue vest. So there was that physical, hey, this is this one. Um,
Well, so my question is more,
okay,
let me just get to my greater question, which
sure.
is, do you feel like we really needed there to be these twins, or do you think we could have just had one character and it would have not made a huge overall difference to the movie?
Hmm.
Because
Oh, go ahead.
I felt like, I mean, I thought his portrayal was fine, and I didn't really have a hard time distinguishing between the two twins like over the course of the movie. I just didn't feel like their personalities, like I didn't feel like they were different enough characters to necessarily warrant both of them existing. And I feel like honestly, I know Mary is like, the one who kind of leads to the vampires getting into the juke joint, but I found myself wondering if the movie would have maybe been a little bit more streamlined and if it would have really been that much different if Mary and Stack were just like not even in the movie. I feel like it could have still been a very similar movie and maybe even stronger if there was just one Michael B. Jordan. And like if I had to pick, I think Annie is a more interesting partner because she's tied into the supernatural stuff. Like there's the history with the lost child there. I I almost I almost felt like the other pairing was like not that I entirely hated it, but I don't know if it really needed to even be in the movie.
You look like you're
Um,
going to say something, Justin.
mm,
Then I'll take a shot because it also gets back to the actors that I really liked. So go ahead.
okay. I'll save the first part of what I was about to say then, because it sounds like you're going to cover that. Um, quick shout out to the actress who played Annie, Wunmi Mosaku. I'll let Jesse take it from there because I have a feeling that's where she was going with that, but I second that motion. But with regards to the twins, in terms of how things played out, like certain events, especially towards at the very end, but also during one of the big climactic fights, um, I do feel that having both of the brothers, did add a certain gravity to the situation. Um, it's it raised the stakes in terms of how one of the fights played out. It added an emotional weight to certain events that I really don't want to spoil because I think I know even though we do spoilers in this podcast a lot, there are certain things I do believe you should see for yourself. So I'm not going to spoil what I'm talking about. But having certain interactions with them, between them, and between characters that they themselves interacted with, I do think it added some layers that if there was only one smokestack brother, then I think it would have been missing a bit of something, and we wouldn't have even realized it.
That's
But
fair. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, it would have changed things. I feel like they just needed to be a little bit more distinct in terms of like who they were. But
yeah, the main distinctions between them that I picked up on were, um, Stack was very much, oh God, oh okay, now I'm starting to second guess myself because I remember the distinction, I can't remember which one said which.
oh,
But
What?
Stack, I want to say, was the one who was very focused on the money. He was very focused on, we can't like just be giving handouts. We have to stick by our rules. We have to do the things the way we did in Chicago. And I think Smoke was the one who said, no, no, this isn't Chicago. Things work differently here.
Now,
And he was
Smoke was the
more,
one that wanted the money. Smoke
oh
was the
God
hard
damn it.
ass of the two, the whole way through. I didn't have a problem at all.
Okay,
Smoke was the hard ass
okay,
who's like, solve it with violence. We need the money. It's all for the profit. Forget the feelings.
okay. I
And
had it
Stack was the
backwards.
one who was always like, I'll mentor you. Stay by us. I'll keep you safe. I want to treat this lady with respect. I'm gonna, like, to me, they were two
Okay,
different personalities completely.
Mhm.
But a different thought I just had is, would it have been better if it had been two different actors?
Well, that
Mm.
might have helped too.
It
Like
might have.
one of the scenes that bothered me in this movie was there was a scene really, really early, like probably first 3 minutes, where they're standing by a car, and like the
Mm.
one goes to hand the other one cigarettes, and it
Yeah.
almost really seemed like the director was being like, "Look, wink, this actor's handing something to himself, wink." I was like, this,
It was showing off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think maybe that is even maybe that's getting more to what my actual issue is. I don't know if it's even necessarily the two brothers. I think it's I don't know if there's a reason that they needed to be identical twins or even twins at all. Like I think you could have just
Mhm.
had two completely different actors playing brothers and
Well, I
it might
said
have
one
felt a
of
That's
little
fair.
them,
better.
one of the older ones should have been Michael Jordan, the basketball player. That would have solved the whole thing.
I think the other part of my issue is honestly I think the idea of Mary being, like of mixed race and passing for white is an interesting thing. And I know that historically that was, something that people dealt with. But also 90% of her character in this movie is just being horny. And like
You could say that about a couple
I was
characters in
gonna
I
say
this.
know,
just her
but like
character.
something about it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like I feel like I didn't really need her in the movie. Like, and I mean, maybe they could have done more to make her character stronger and like actually make it a character other than, attractive lady who wants to cheat on her white husband with Michael B. Jordan, which I can't blame her for, but it feels like that's like her defining character trait is that she's trying to get in his pants.
Now, I don't fully disagree with that, Joe. I feel like she probably, especially for who the actress is, maybe is like overhyped for what she actually provides to
Yeah.
the movie.
That's
Hmm.
fair. That's fair. I mean,
Yeah.
there. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, there's definitely stronger actresses in this movie. The first time I watched it, I absolutely love Lee Jun-lee's character Grace Chow. Um, right through that fight scene, so glad she didn't turn. But watching the for the second time, I mean, I really enjoyed Annie the first viewing of the movie, but wow, she is my number one for the Sinners movie. She is absolutely amazing in her delivery, and she is such a counterpoint to Mary. You get a full-on romance that it was love lost and love is back, and the whole if I get bitten, stake me, don't let me turn. I want to go see our dead baby. Um, yeah, she is the poignant. Did I just say that wrong?
I think you said it. Poignant.
The poignant character.
Uh,
You can tell I learn words by reading them. Librarian. But yeah, she is such an amazing, poignant character for the movie and is sensual like Mary and Pearline, but she has just so much heart in the movie and is a really good counterpoint to Mary's horniness, as you put it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree. I think she is amazing. And I mean, I don't feel like she really has much more screen time than Mary, but she just feels like a more fully fledged character. Like she feels like a woman who has like lived a life and been through some shit. And I think even like in Michael B. Jordan's like performance against her, like you feel the history between these characters, I think, a lot more than you do with Mary. Like
Hmm.
I mean, as you said, you feel that there is like an actual love and like relationship there, and it's just so much more compelling to me than anything with Haley Steinfeld on screen.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe
and oh,
Haley Steinfeld would have closed the shop in case somebody walked in. I don't know. It's possible.
And
Also, I mean, spoilers, but we already spoiled the vampire thing. I love the part where she's like, "These aren't hates, they're vampires," and then like, I just love a genre movie like this that acknowledges, where like Shaun of the Dead. I love that they know what zombies are. Like they've seen zombie movies and zombies show up. I love in this movie, vampires are a known thing.
Hmm.
And they're
Hmm.
like,
yeah.
oh crap, these are vampires. And I love that she like has some knowledge of that and busts out the garlic and like, she knows
Mhm.
how to try to fight them.
I had that in my
Hmm.
like list also, that it was a world that has supernatural things, and it wasn't necessarily their supernatural things, but like they had limited knowledge of what these other things were that were out there. I did like that
Hmm.
quite a bit.
Yeah. And quick shout out to one of the other vampires, just because he was really only ever in the background or like kind of on the periphery, but just the way his face was lit, and the expressions he had, it was just always kind of cloaked in shadow for the most part. And he was just the creepiest looking thing on screen almost any time he was there. The guy who played, I think it was Bert, Peter Dreymanis, he, like I said, small character, but he was one of the main trio of vampires that starts this whole thing off. And it's just something about the way he holds himself, or and like I said, the way the light played across his face. He was just creepy as fuck. And it's notable when even like a little like a background or side character can actually play the part well. So I'm sure he doesn't get a lot of love. I just wanted to say, dude, that was creepy and well done. Um,
Yeah,
but
the primogenitor vampire Remick is a lot more sympathetic, especially when he's talking about his origins at the end
mhm,
and that whole speech in the water. But yeah, Bert was
yeah.
creepy.
Mhm. Yeah. Just in general, the portrayal of the vampires was like once you find out how they get sort of connected. I don't want to say too much, but after they turn, there's like a sort of bond that forms between all of them, and um it's unsettling. Because it's a little different than most of the other takes on vampires I've seen, and it touches upon a type of horror where you that doesn't get explored as much as it should, where you kind of lose what makes you you while still being kind of aware of everything around you, but not being yourself anymore. I'm probably talking in circles, but just the way the vampires operate in this it's pretty unique and really fucking creepy. So yeah. Um,
Yeah,
and the other,
it was like they
okay,
kept their own individuality, but also like entered a hive mind, basically.
yeah,
So like
yeah.
where Remco was
Hmm.
like, I know everything this guy knows now. Like
Yeah.
Hmm.
his
I was
memories are
I,
my memories.
I was
Hmm.
wondering about that. Like, did Remick actually have control over the others, or was it a true hive mind where they were all kind of equally sharing everything? Because I think at one point, I'm forgetting which is which. Stack, after he gets turned, I think says that he can like hear Remick's thoughts.
Hmm.
Like, because he
I
says like he really means that or something. I can hear his thoughts or something like that. So I don't know if they are all equal or
Hmm.
I I think they are, but for most of them, okay, fuck it, spoilers. For most of them, I think it's Remic's desire for that connection, for that community, for
yeah.
that sense of belonging and love that that overrides most of what the others would have wanted to do. It's just so strong that they just go along with it.
Well,
Not
that's
all of
kind of,
them. It was just
yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
That's what made me wonder about that because he makes a pretty compelling pitch for the idea of community and, joining them being an escape from the persecution that they're facing otherwise in this world. But it would be kind of a lot darker if he convinced them to join him only to then actually have control over them.
That's true.
Hmm.
But I guess we don't really see any firm evidence of that in the movie.
Mhm.
Hmm.
But since we've sort of actually come out and said what I was only alluding to before, yeah, the element of horror that this works in is basically I watched a YouTube video a while back that it was comparing different genres, and one part of it said the only thing more horrifying than cosmic horror is I forgot how he put it, but like it was like beautiful horror, where it's horror that makes you want to be a part of it, even though what you're becoming a part of is monstrous. And this really taps into that, which it does it well, I think, because it's like just throw away everything that you knew before. Join us. We'll make this all better for you. We have the answers. You'll belong with us. And just that insidious
Hmm.
wheedling away at your resistance, at your free will, at your wanting to be an individual, and just give in. It's ugh, that's really got under my skin, and hot damn, was it well written. So yeah, just I definitely wanted to give a shout out to that too. Um, any other performances we wanted to highlight before we move on, or
I'll just do a 2 second plug for Jamie Lawson as Pearline. I thought she was pretty
hmm,
incredible. More from like a performance standpoint, maybe even more than acting per se, but was notable. I liked her quite a bit as well.
okay.
Yeah, her part on the stage.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, where everything was getting to the point of no return. Yeah, that was good. Um,
She is good, whether it's on the stage or in the storeroom. Either, no, sorry,
Hey.
sorry, sorry.
yeah,
Oh,
there's a lot of
I
sex in
think
this movie.
I I think the storeroom got her feeling like she could perform on the
There you
stage.
that's
go.
fair. Honestly, I mean, Justin, you said there's a lot of sex in this movie. There's a lot of sexuality, and there are a couple like actual sex scenes, but I think one thing that you have to kind of admire about this movie is that it doesn't feel exploitative. Like there's no nudity. It's not like it's not doing it to be like titillating necessarily. It just feels like scenes from these people's lives, like they have these connections, they have these desires. So I think I kind of applaud this movie for not shying away from sex, as I think a lot of modern movies have done.
Hmm.
I think there's been, in the wake of like controversies and stuff over the past decade or so, I feel like there's been a hard pull away from that subject matter entirely, which is understandable, but it is part of, human nature, part of humanity. So I think the way that it's handled in this movie is like works really well to feel true to these characters without being exploitative.
I would love if they had an after credit scene in the future where somebody just went into the storeroom with a black light. It was like, my God, look at all the fluid in
Oh
this room.
no.
How long was this place open? And they're like one night, and like, damn,
But what a night it
we
was.
got all kinds of stuff
Hmm.
in here.
Hmm.
All right. I
Yeah.
get. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah. There was a lot of references as well, and that one line that Remick delivers in Chinese, it's like, hmm, is Chinese going to have a nerdy resurgence in learning it, kind of like what happened with Firefly back when that was popular?
Oh.
And Chinese was one of the major languages in the galaxy. Are
Hmm.
people learning that one line from this movie?
uh,
I
that
know
is fun to think
how
about.
you like to be licked.
uh, but yeah. From there, I guess we've talked about performances. We talked a bit about the music, and we seem to be kind of just naturally segueing into standout scenes. Like what really stuck in your mind? Was there any ones that you didn't like? Ones that really stole the show. I think the big one, the elephant in the room, is the big musical number where
Yeah.
where Sammy gets up and really breaks through the veil, as I mentioned earlier, and sets the rest of the movie in motion. Sounds like you have some thoughts on that one, Joe.
Boy, that sure was a scene.
It was.
So I'll be out. Let me just say in general, I feel like I've only seen this movie once. I do feel like this is a movie that, I mean, I want to see it again. And I feel like upon spoiler alert, I really liked it, but I feel like it's a movie that when I revisit, I will probably just continue to like even more and appreciate new and different things about.
Hmm.
Um, but when I was in the theater watching this movie and this scene happened, at first, like when like, the ancient ancestors kind of show up, I was like, this is cool. They told us about this in the opening. Then some sort of like space Jimi Hendrix dude shows up with an electric guitar and starts wailing away. And I was like, all right, not so sure about. Then there's like a DJ shows up. It's like, so for a second, I thought it was ridiculous and kind of terrible. But then I kind of ultimately came around to appreciating that Ryan Coogler just went for it. Like, it feels a little bit silly, but realistically, I mean, spoilers for my thoughts on this movie in general. I feel like this movie is often a little bit silly, but like it's not necessarily a bad thing. And this scene, I really appreciate what he was trying to do with, the music reaching through the past and into the future. I'm not sure the way it was portrayed was entirely effective, but I kind of just have to admire the fact that he went for it so hard.
I hate
Okay.
when I agree with Joe.
Oh.
But the big scene, I also loved the idea that it was like pulling in their ancestors and was like a way to bring back lives from the past and maybe from the undead world or someplace. And similar to Joe, once they started getting the real 1984 flavor out there with the DJ and the Africa Bombata singers there and everything, I was like, wait a second, what? Karen didn't have a problem with it, but to me, it did take me out of it a little bit. Just I don't know how like conceptually linking with the future, I think is a harder thing to me because who is it that you're linking with? I like your ancestors, I could see a direct line to, but to be like these are people that may exist in the future, like that was a little harder for me. So that was both on my like and my dislike list for that scene.
Okay. I was absolutely wowed by it the first time we saw it. Like I said before, I like musicals. I like Bollywood. It's definitely understated in comparison to Bollywood, but it was it was a very moving number
Mm.
and it was very cool that they also worked in the Chinese dancers as well. Um, so Grace and Bo were getting into the music as well, so it showed that this was for everybody. And it called the vampires too. But I, yeah, I'm a sucker for musical numbers, and at the end where it's figuratively burning down the house was cool.
It's a very, I mean, despite some feelings I may have on it, it was a very euphoric scene
Yeah.
like I was like, whoa, this is almost like taking a drug right now.
Yeah, it was. I have seen this particular sequence described as psychedelic on a couple of review sites and whatnot, and
They haven't
I
seen Moulin Rouge in that case.
yeah, that's a fair point. Though I don't feel it's an inaccurate descriptor. I mean, it it's I think we should take a moment and just talk about the camera work in this scene because it's like ducking and weaving through the crowds and into different rooms and like pulling back,
Yeah.
and I think it's all one cut,
I
which
really,
Ooh.
yeah.
speaking of that, I wish I could have seen this movie in IMAX.
Mm.
Cody, you
Hmm.
didn't see it that way, did you?
I saw it in my version of IMAX. No, wait, did I or not? No, I don't think I did. No, no, I didn't.
Because they released a like 70 millimeter IMAX version, and from my understanding, there are like certain scenes in the movie where it just like opens up to the full IMAX aspect ratio, and I believe this is one of those scenes.
Hmm.
And like that
Oh.
with like the like extra loud like sound of an IMAX theater, I bet that would be incredible to experience. I'm kind of sad I didn't get to see that. But I mean, I it turns out Ryan Coogler knows how to direct a movie. Like I think visually, like you were saying, this is an incredibly just well shot, just gorgeous movie, just visually speaking.
Mhm. And it leans a lot into the practical effects. I mean, there is some use of CGI with like the eye shine on the vampires and whatnot, but even from what I read, even some of the scenes where like Michael B. Jordan is standing next to himself, some of those were shot like it was spliced on top of each other. Like he filmed one role and then changed costume, got into position, and filmed the other role next to it, and they overlaid them on top of each other.
Oh well.
Oh,
I mean, especially for like outdoor shots where you have to worry about lighting and background stuff and whatnot, that's incredible. Um, and I think the movie only had a budget of what I want to say $90 million or something like that. So compared, which is not a small amount of money, but compared to
Yeah,
like what some,
yeah, these days it's pretty. I mean, well, and even compared to what he has presumably worked with, like for the Black Panther movies, I'm sure
Mhm.
those are probably hundreds of millions of dollars.
right.
Yeah, so he worked some magic with this, and damn, it shows. Um, but yeah, other scenes that really jumped out at people.
Yeah, if we're talking about the cinematography where let's see, no, the daughter, Lisa,
Lisa,
goes across the street to get Grace and then Grace walks back, that's all one cut.
Yep.
yeah,
It was
There were
interesting.
definitely several one cut shots around the film, which I enjoy. I usually can see those a little better when I watch a movie.
Hmm.
yeah, it's such a nice change from a lot of modern cinema where it's just jump cut, jump cut, jump cut, and hardly gives you a chance to breathe, hardly gives you a chance to take in where you are. Even like within a scene, it'll be one person then like a shot reverse shot back forth without giving you a chance to really take in what you're seeing. So seeing a film that actually lingers on, a person or a vista or just anything for more than a few seconds, it was surprisingly refreshing. Um, and yeah, I do think the cinematography deserves a shout out because yeah, they showed restraint at a lot of times and a lot of skill, and yeah, I respect the heck out of that. Um, let's
And no
see.
stupid shaky cams like you get in a lot of horror movies.
Oh, yes. Yeah, this was a very smoothly shot film too. It's like, I mean, there were, I think, a few shots where, things were hectic and there was a bit more motion to the camera, but for the most part, it wasn't afraid to let you see what you were going to see. And that counts for a lot because I have gotten so tired of the shaky cam phenomenon that we've had for like the past 20 years. Let's see. Trying to
Other
think of
scenes, I'm trying to think of like I don't know if I have an actual scene, unless you want to just discuss like the battle against the vampires as a scene, because I have a fair amount to say about that in general.
sure, yeah, like a sequence. Sure, yeah, we can count that.
Starting with this is where a lot of my problems in the movie begin. So
Hmm.
Oh no.
I read on one review earlier today that basically said it was a tale of two movies, and the first half was fantastic, and the second half was okay. And the more I think about this, I wouldn't quite go that far, but I do think there's some problems here in the second half of this film, only because we have been given ostensibly to this point in the movie a fairly smart group of characters, intelligent. They seem to understand the world around them fairly well, and then suddenly they get to this vampire battle, and like intelligence goes out the window in most cases, and motivations go out the window in some cases, and I'm like, oh boy. So I don't know the rules on this first part. So the vampires had to be invited in order to come into the building, right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
And they definitely don't touch on this in the movie. So I guess we could only draw upon other vampire properties. But is a vampire allowed to like alter the building itself? Like, could they throw a Molotov and burn down a wall? Is that still entering a building if there's no building to quote unquote enter at that point? They didn't seem to
Uh,
have any way to get into this building until the humans were like, let's just let them in. And I'm like, why would you say that? Because you've just held them up for like a third of the movie by doing literally nothing but standing inside this barn.
Well,
Grace lost her shit.
Yeah.
yeah,
She did, but
Yeah.
that was again like I didn't believe that.
they
Like
were
as a
coming for
character
Well,
her daughter.
motivation. I know, but she literally told her husband to go out and get the car in the middle of the beginning of the vampire invasion. Like she's not exactly the most logical character here,
which makes it all the
unfortunately.
which if that is the case, that makes it all the more believable that they threaten her daughter and she's expected to just stay there and hope that they don't get there before dawn. That makes it all the more believable that she would do whatever it took to try and save the last person left in her life that she, that's part of her family.
I fully believe that they wanted us to believe what you just said, but I didn't. Um, I don't know that they could sing their folk
I
tales and get to
disagree with
town that
Cody.
fast.
I also disagree with Cody.
You know
That's
how
just
hard
like
it
your
is
opinion,
to
man.
do an Irish jig while trying to get into town. It's so slow. All those dances and
yeah,
kumbayas.
you bring up a really good point. We started with one vampire, then three vampires, then four, five, six. Then everybody leaves because Stack dies. And then, oof, they're all vampires doing this dance around the primogenitor vampire and his little river dance thing. How did they turn like 50 people that quickly?
They can move very fast.
They
Some
can
of them had
jump, they
cars,
can
though.
move really fast,
That's
but
yeah.
you get all that hunting before, like when Cornbread goes to t take a leak and they're toying with him a bit in the shadows. And then everybody leaves and poof. How did,
I don't know. I didn't have a
yeah,
problem with that.
I mean,
okay.
it is a weird thing because it does feel like Remick and maybe some of the others like they definitely seem to like drawn out savor their turning of these people into vampires. You know, they didn't just for the most part, other than I forget somebody did come up to the door there and somebody just like jumped out and knocked them down very quickly there. But for the most part, it's like they're hunting them, like kind of like you're saying more, Jess. I
Right,
also
yeah.
I also did not love the tone is a thing that I don't know what the tone of this movie is supposed to be at times. Like it has all these wonderful themes and it has all these really deep messages it's going for. And then it cuts to, again, same scene here. Suddenly they have laid out an entire table full of vampire fighting instruments that they have set up somehow in like this, I don't know, like grab what you want to go out and fight the demons type thing. We happen to have all this stuff on hand right here. I don't know.
Well, you saw them like breaking furniture and
Yeah.
sharpening table legs and stuff. I
It
mean,
just
or
seemed
chairs.
weird. I don't know. Okay, so
This is why I said this movie is silly in multiple instances, but
yes,
I don't
this
mind
is
it.
kind of what I'm getting at here, but it's just a little uneven. I don't know.
Well, they took Annie's knowledge
Yeah.
and were peeling garlic
The
and
gar I did
sharpening
like where they
ta
were eating the
table
garlic.
legs
That
and
was a fun
such.
Yeah.
scene.
That was cool, yeah.
I
But yeah,
also
so they did get everything ready,
yeah.
but then there was that oh shit moment after Grace yells for the vampires to come in. Yeah.
I have more in this scene still. Sorry, just to keep
Go
going
for
Go
on
it.
for
this,
it. Go for
but
it.
these characters again just seemed like so smart at other points in the movie, especially like Smoke in particular, who's like running this whole thing, and he's very non-emotional about things. He's very logical. This is what we need to do. We don't take their crappy sharecropper credit. We take only cash, and we want only. And then like I get that it's his brother, but I didn't love that he didn't kill his brother. I feel like he should have. I don't know. I know that would be a tough thing to do, but that was that was tough. The fact, I don't know, the fact that the vampires got in, period, when they were like clearly being just held by a wooden wall, like
Mm.
semi bothered me because I was like, they weren't even a threat. Like they were a threat, but they weren't at the same time.
Well, it's
And then, folks, we get to the coup de grace here, the big scene outside where we're fighting by the water, and how do all the vampires die?
by
Sunlight.
the sun coming up.
Sunlight. Gee, who would have known that would have killed all of them? Oh, I know. Their leader who started the movie with literally a scene where he was running through the sunlight in an attempt to save himself, and that's how he got into Bert and Joan's house. And here I'm like, this guy doesn't have the danger sensory of like
I
this.
feel
This could be a long time here. Maybe we should
I,
get out of there. Not to mention the movie's already established that all of the other vampires also share his knowledge now. So we're saying we have
that's
like
fair.
70 vampires who are also stupid to how the sun works when it comes up, nor do any of them make any effort to move once the sun is rising over the top.
I could
Oh,
It's
Yeah,
silly.
only Mary ran.
He
Yeah.
yeah,
just he just really wanted Sammy that badly. I
yeah.
mean, I think I don't entirely disagree with you that it is a little bit silly, but I like the idea that like Sammy is just like so powerful, like there's just something about him that Remick just like becomes fixated on that, like and lets his own, lets his caution down and just kind of forgets about everything else.
or that
Yeah,
like Smoke made Stack promise that he would never kill Sammy because that's what he was going to get in return for not staking Stack. Like, is that how the vampires work? Do they want to kill people or don't they? Like, I'm unconvinced by their motivation here.
Well, Remick was the one who was so laser focused on Sammy.
Yeah.
So I could totally believe Stack making that deal because he doesn't have that connection. He didn't want to bring back the people that he'd lost over the decades or even centuries, however long Remick's been alive. That was all Remick's thing. With Remick gone, or even before he was gone, but I mean that wasn't the driving force for Stack. So I would see him agreeing to that deal.
But here's the
Um,
thing. The
Also,
the whole fight at the juke joint
mhm.
were recently turned vampires attempting to kill their loved ones. A la the Chinese people, a la Mary, a la Stack, a la Perline, a la that was the entire basis of their attacking. But then when it comes to a plot point that they need, they're like, well, actually not in this one case. And you're like, oh, okay. So we're breaking the mythology here to make the plot work. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I
That
mean,
actually
I
is.
yeah, I can see Stack. Stack was still very much in control of being Stack, and he wanted to turn Annie and his twin so that they and he and Mary could,
Be together.
yeah, unlive happily ever after.
Olivia.
But after Stack bites Annie and Smoke stakes Annie so she doesn't turn, he's like, "Oh shit, this plan has gone to pieces." I said, "Yeah,
Yeah, it might have changed his
yeah,
priorities a bit.
yeah, yeah."
And
The twin fight scene doesn't quite make sense. You're right.
yeah, I, I,
way to ruin
I after
everything, Cody.
yeah,
I'm just saying,
that's what he does.
spoiler for my rating. I liked the movie, but there are some problems here. I'm just saying.
But how creepy was it when they all started saying the Our Father back at Sammy?
Uh,
Creepy.
Yeah,
So
and
creepy.
yeah, just because you don't usually think of vampires as even being able to do that sort of thing, and yeah, that was there were some really effective, uh, scary but not like jump scary scenes in this, like
I
just atmospherically scary, and that was certainly one of them.
I do have another scene, but I want to see if anybody else has some scenes, so I stop hogging the time here.
Let's see.
I feel like we've already discussed my scenes.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any others that are
Well,
really
I'll just
jumping
ask them. What did you guys
out.
think of the morning after with the KKK?
oh,
How did
that
that
was
how did that
yeah,
scene work for you
It
guys?
was amazing.
It was
it was
gratuitous. It
glorious.
was gratuitous but cathartic.
Again, it was
Exactly.
completely ridiculous, but I loved it.
The main issue I had with it was the seeming lack of recoil on a couple of those guns. But um, other than that, I mean, it was established that they were all going to come and try to kill everybody, at the juke joint or burn it down or both. So
Mhm.
it was established that they were going to show up and do that. So it didn't feel like it was entirely out of left field or anything.
Do you think the
Um,
movie would have been better if that subplot had not been in there? Because to me, it just felt really tacked on as like oh, and the KKK. You gotta have the
I
KKK because it's the
so
Yeah,
South.
it there was too much foreshadowing for it to not
yeah.
happen. Yeah, the whole, hey, Bert is actually his nephew, and yeah, there was a lot of foreshadowing for it.
It just
yeah,
felt
I
tacked
I
on to me.
I so I'm actually going to agree with Cody
God damn
that
it! I changed my mind. I
it
love
did
the scene.
feel it did feel kind of tacked on, but I still loved it anyway because I just who doesn't need to
I
see a bunch of KKK guys getting machine gunned to death in the year 2025?
there is
It's
that.
like punching
Like,
Nazis.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's literally the scene from Inglorious Bastards where he machine guns Hitler's face off. Like, who's gonna complain about that?
I like that.
Hmm.
Cody Fleming, apparently.
Apparently, Cody loves the KKK and doesn't want to see his buddies getting mowed down.
I
But
enjoy kill the KKK story, but like where do you got all this stuff with the vampires and the spirits? And it just felt like that was part of the, I don't know, part
I
of the
will
world
say
where
I
like
had
let's
kind
put that in there because
so
it's the South.
I
But
will say like leading up to that I had kind of forgotten about the whole KKK thing, and so when there's like the scene where Smoke is just like smoking a cigarette, like rolling a
no,
cigarette and smoking it, and like has a pistol, I thought he was just gonna shoot himself. Like honestly, I thought like after all the shit that went down, I thought he was just gonna off himself. But then what happened was so much better.
Yeah,
I will
go
say,
out in a blaze of glory.
Yeah.
yeah, I will say, I think that whole sequence needed to exist to give a reason for the first two vampires, Bert and I'm blanking on the other one's name.
Ernie.
Um, Thank you.
Joan.
Or no, was it
Oh,
Joan?
the
Joan.
girl or the guy?
The Bert's wife. The
Joan.
Joan,
two
yeah.
Joan. Yeah. Um, yeah. I think it gave a reason for them to, or it it needed to be there for the fact that they were also KKK members to have any weight to it, because Remick uses that to try and also make his case that there's no place in this world for you unless you join us, because even when you thought you were safe, even when you thought you had made a foothold for yourself, a place where you could just exist, they're going to take it away from you. And I know that because I ate these other two motherfuckers who are also clan members, and they know about what their uncle knew. So I feel that the gunning down of them at the end had to exist to justify all of that, because it added weight to the primary story with him saying that, look, you can't escape. The only way out is through me. And was it gratuitous? The whole like KKK gunning down thing? Yes, but I didn't hate it,
Is
and
that
I do feel that I do feel like it helped legitimize what came before it with that whole other subplot.
I
So
mean, you just raised an interesting question I hadn't thought of before. Like, is that motivation for the black characters in the movie to be turned into vampires to know that they get to then live an eternal life with KKK members? That's a pretty shitty
I
reason to
mean,
become a vampire, if you ask me. Now you're hive-minded with the racists who wanted to kill you forever.
But now they're all about love and peace.
it's
Yeah,
True.
they didn't have enough
yeah.
Irish folk songs in their life before. That's the whole thing.
Uh, but yeah, I do feel it wasn't the strongest scene in the film, but I didn't hate it by any means. So,
Oh no.
Okay, okay. Any other scenes, or do you guys want to chat about those credit scenes or not?
Yeah,
sure,
I'm
we can
kind of
talk about those.
curious how everyone felt about those.
Um,
Buddy
I
guy for the win.
Buddy guy.
He was pretty great. Um,
Hmm.
I I feel that that mid-credit sequence scene wasn't entirely necessary, but I liked that we got a follow-up, because we never really did see Stack or Mary burn up along with
Yeah.
the others. We saw Mary run off, I think, at one point, and yeah, it was nice to kind of see what happened and to, touch base with them and find out that, well, they're still willing to keep, Stack is still willing to keep his word to Smoke even after all these years. He made the offer to Sammy, but he was willing to you know let that water go under the bridge, as it were. Um, it was a good musical number, if nothing else. I'm not,
Hmm.
I will never refuse one of those. Um, was it entirely necessary? No, but I I liked it as kind of a cap off to everything. So that's me.
Tied up all the loose ends. And you get to know what Sammy did after everything. He did not give up the blues music like his father wanted him to.
Hmm.
He's paying tribute to the love of one night.
That was the
Um,
only thing I didn't like about that scene is the fact that his club is named Pearlines. It's like, because you went down on her one time. Like, what?
It was the best night of his life, Joe. He said so.
Apparently.
Yeah,
He
he
says
says,
so.
yeah.
yeah,
Like,
I I also like, and we mentioned how people knew that vampires existed. That bartender looked at um Stack and Mary and went, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
He knew. I
Maybe
appreciate that.
he was just put off by their funky fresh outfits.
yeah, they were good
Uh,
stuff.
I mean, obviously, I love Buddy Guy. I hated this scene though because it prompted me to spend a lot of money on tickets to see Buddy Guy next month because
Oh,
I've seen him a few
Nice.
times before, and I actually Alexis and I had tickets to see him on what turns out to be the first leg of his farewell tour in 2023, but ended up selling those tickets because, unbeknownst at the time I bought them, it was 2 weeks after I had brain surgery. Um,
Oh God, he always finds a way to bring
I
this up. It's
know.
unreal.
Anyway, but I recently discovered that he is now doing a encore to his farewell tour, and it's going to be
hmm, nice.
playing about an hour and a half away next month. So
ooh.
Which
this
direction?
movie it's New Buffalo, so basically Michigan Indiana border.
Yeah, okay.
But this movie hit me in my feels about the blues and Buddy Guy, and I would said, God damn it, I need to drop a bunch of money on these tickets.
Mm,
But I do kind of feel like knowing about the blues and loving the blues and the history that it has in Black culture does add another layer to this movie. And also, I mean, I'm curious how you guys felt about, I know we're in the mid-credit scene already, but how did you guys take the ending when he goes back to the church and his father tries to like tell him to give up music again and he like refuses to?
The end scene and the beginning scene of the
Yes.
movie.
Yeah, which I
um,
always love a good frame as well. So that was.
mhm.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't
Because
know. Isn't
I've heard some different interpretations of that. I'm just kind of curious how you guys took it.
I I thought it was powerful because it's mirrored in a scene with Smoke, actually. I don't remember if it's during the KKK fight or like during the fight against Stack, but in both cases, it's a struggle to put down something harmful to yourself, to those around you, something that you might well be better off without, or at least that society is telling you you'd be better off without. And in both cases, neither of them is able to do it. It's just a part of them. Either through circumstance or just something that they feel in their soul. In the case of Sammy, it's something they can't let go of. And I felt that was just a really powerful set of shots. Um, just because there are some things in life you just can't
See,
let
I
go
don't
of.
know. I mean, I guess harmful in the sense that it drew the vampires to them, but I also, in a way, think that the music kind of saved him in a way that religion didn't. I mean, the
Hmm.
scene with the Our Father, he's trying to turn to the religion that, has been instilled in him, and the vampires basically just turn it back around on him. And it's a little too literal, maybe, but him whacking Remick with his dobro ends up buying him a little bit of time, which, if it wasn't for that extra second with the resonator plate stuck in Remick's head, maybe it wouldn't have given him enough time for the sun to come up. So, like, I kind of took it as more, maybe music actually gives him something that religion couldn't, or like is his actual salvation.
Hmm.
Sure.
Yeah,
Which is
I saw it more as like, his father being religious just saw it as evil. So it was, I don't know that it was evil. It just is more.
yeah,
I
that's
did like I forget, did the preacher actually try to yank the guitar handle out of his hand, or did he just tell him to drop it? I couldn't remember, but I liked the close up on the guitar handle
I
for a
think he
few
just told
seconds there.
him to drop
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
because
that kind of gets to that song at the post credits too. I don't know if that's fair to tie in with this or not, but I really questioned what happened right after the scene with him and his dad because I don't know when that music, because when we watched the post credit, I was like, what was the point of that? Then I had to think about like why would they include that like that as is? Because it just seems so mundane to include that in there. But I kind of wondered right after the movie if like somehow he it's probably just me coming up with shit here, but somehow he went into that church with the guitar and then played the blues music in the church, and it just like fucked up everybody in the church somehow. And he kind of like walked away and he was like done with religion, blues only. But like I almost got the impression that like he massacred the church somehow with his music. I don't know how, but somehow.
I did not get
What?
that
no.
impression.
No.
That's
No, I'm just
the
picturing
extended
like
cut.
people's heads exploding because he's playing the blues.
I think
Dark
No.
Shadows.
I think it's more like after everything he had been through, he goes back to the only place he's got left. And instead of, the people saying, "Oh my God, you're safe. What happened to you? Come here. Are you all right?" It was, "You've been sinning again, and you gotta drop those ways and promise to all of us that you'll." No concern for him in body, in flesh,
Yeah.
in any, in regards to his health, his mental state. Just, no, I told you, and you didn't listen to me, and now you got to listen to me and do what I say and drop the guitar. I think that just he realized he was never going to be told anything else, and that maybe there was nothing there for him either. So he didn't make people's heads explode. He just left, cut those ties, and
Yeah.
went
Plus,
off to live
God
his own
never got him any storeroom pussy.
life. Oh,
I don't know. Maybe
slap that on the Blu-ray cover.
maybe he pushed his dad to push him away, and then that's how he met his cousins, and they got him the guitar, and this was all God's plan, Joe. He has a plan.
It's true.
This involves killing everyone that you know and love.
Did he or did he not get the lady? He did. Okay, there you go.
Got the
Anyway,
lady.
And
He got the lady, but he lost the lady.
That's
it's
true.
true.
It would have been
yes,
nice to see him eating ice cream in that bar at the mid-credit scene, now that I think about it.
What would that have looked like?
like he enjoyed it, but didn't want it over too
Yeah,
fast.
not too much. You're right.
There would have been some fabric concealing him licking the ice cream.
Yes.
Like a napkin or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Oh,
it.
all right. Any final thoughts before we put a rating on this?
No,
And if not,
sir.
anyone want to go first?
Uh,
As
I might be low, so I'll go first. I don't care.
Do
okay.
it.
So just my quick summary after all we talked about here today. As I said, there's a few things that I didn't particularly enjoy the more I thought about them. But overall, this is a really good movie. So I just said in my summary here, I think this is a good movie about racism. I think this is a good movie about vampires. I think this is a good movie about the South, but I think it's an excellent movie about music. And I'm gonna somehow take those four statements and average that out to an 8.1
Hmm.
for my score. So there we go.
Oh,
Okay. All right. I guess I can go next. I am not sure I've seen a movie like a contemporary movie, a more recent movie that I've enjoyed this much since maybe all the way back to Everything Everywhere All at Once. Where that was just a phenomenal film that dealt with some very poignant topics in a way that at times was ridiculous or at least kind of silly.
boo.
But it was
You love
I
that. Shut up.
It's one of my favorite movies ever made.
Yeah, fantastic film. And I haven't sat down in a theater and really just enjoyed a movie to that extent since then, I think. Until seeing Sinners. I mean, did I like Deadpool and Wolverine? Yeah, it was a really fun time, but it didn't have the layers of something like this. And it was very much a surprise for me because I hadn't heard a lot about it until I went to see it, and it's one of the few films I've actually seen twice in theaters. So yeah, fantastic film. Not quite perfect, but pretty close. Nine 9.1 out of 10, just to mirror Cody and one up him a little bit.
Wow.
Hmm.
All right, I will jump in here. I feel like I've already stated most of my feelings on this film. I think it is a little silly, but I think it is an excellent movie. I think kind of going on with what Justin said, it's a lot of fun to watch. And I know at one point early in this episode, Justin, you said you were afraid that we were like making it sound stodgy or something because we were getting into like, a deeper analysis of some of the themes and whatnot. But it is a very fun movie. Like there's action, there's, some wackiness, there's great music, there's attractive people eating each other out. I mean, this movie literally has everything you could possibly want. Um, that said, I'm actually going to come in somewhere between you two with it was going to be an 8.5, but I'm going to say an 8.6 out of 10. Um, but that being said, honestly, I would not be surprised if I, watch this movie again and probably again. If that estimation, if that score rises in the future.
If you go in the storm, it'll be rising for sure.
Hey,
Oh,
Oh, darn, I'm last. Okay, I'll give it a 9.6. I don't often see movies, period. I don't often see movies twice in the theater. Probably the last one I did that might have been Kill Bill.
Mm.
Um, Prior to that, Disney movies as a kid. I know I saw The Little Mermaid twice when I was 6 years old in theaters, but definitely one that I'd want to own. Definitely one that I want the music on CD. Um, it was an enjoyable spectacle and certainly my movie of the year. Take that with a grain of salt because I don't see many movies, but I really enjoyed it.
all right. So yeah, were you doing an average on that, Cody?
Yeah, I
Or
just had it here and then I went back
oh,
to double check some math, but I think we have, oh, pretty healthy 8.85 tonight, which
nice.
is pretty high,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
well deservedly so.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm on that note, I am quite happy that we're talking about some legitimately good things on the podcast recently after a few of those duds that we had earlier in the year. Um,
Yeah,
so
yes.
yeah, so hopefully we're on the upswing, and yeah. So if it's still in theaters where you live by the time this goes live, go see it. Sinners is amazing. And yeah, it's just a very well-made film. Um, so with that, I think that wraps us up. This has been another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.